Hello there, this is a video of the demo game for Dropfleet Commander that I played at Firestorm Games in Cardiff recently at the pre-launch event. It will be showing off the demo game, but also it will have, first thoughts, my thoughts on how the game plays, certain things which don't quite work, a lot of things which do work. In regards to the video itself, apologize that it's not the best. I used the camera I had. I set it up on a tripod next to the game, kind of to not interfere too much, so it doesn't have the best view. And the video sped up because it was an hour long, and I thought that's maybe a bit too much. So I try and shorten it down, speed it up. So I'll go through what's happening on screen, and I'll also talk about the mechanics that are being used at that time and whether they work really well or not, and so on and so forth. As I said, this is kind of just a cobbled together video. Please comment, let me know what you think, how to improve the video, if I droned on too much, anything along those lines. So just whatever you can, that'd be great. Thanks. Okay then guys, so this is the actual demo game starting now. As you can see, we have 3 battle groups for each side, with the Scourge and the UCM. 2 of the battle groups are made up of a cruiser with 2 frigates, and then 1 is a single cruiser on its own. Now, in this turn, the Scourge have already had their activation and moved their first battle group up. The way activations work is you have a card for each battle group, and those cards are put into a little deck, and then you take the top one from the deck, and that is the one you activate first. In order to determine which player gets to go first, they will have a build rate or command value, and the one with the lowest number gets to go first. If they both have the same number, a roll-off is done. So the Scourge have moved their ship forward, and now the UCM are bringing their special ship forward. Now that's the ship with the carrier, and it's opening fire on the Scourge cruiser in the middle. And as you can see, some damage has been put onto the Scourge cruiser, and that little token there was a bomber token. Now bombers are, you can fire them no matter what, you can send them out no matter what. They're 12-inch range, and they have a weapon profile, and you just roll on the weapon profile as you would anything else at the end of the turn. Now in order to do damage, you have a lock value for each weapon. So for instance, most of the Scourge have a 4+ lock value. This then means that you have the number of dice, depending on the actual weapon profile. You roll that. If you get the lock value, you do damage. If you get 2 more than the lock value, it's a critical. The reason criticals are important is because each ship gets an armor save. For the UCM, it is a 3+, or so it was with the ships we were using, and the Scourge, it was a 4+. This meant that if you got a critical, you ignore the armor. So it's quite important to have those criticals. I think now we can see the other Scourge battle group moving up. For this demo game, coherency was ignored because that little frigate then just zoomed off away from the remainder of the battle group. Those frigates are the ones with troop capacity, or they can deploy troops. Those are integral to the game in the fact that in order to win, you have to have boots on the sectors, the little thing right close to the camera, which looks like a little city. You have to have your tanks, your troops on the ground in order to win the game. And the people that control the ground, the cities essentially, are the people that will win. Now you can see the UCM are moving up their last another battle group. What they'll probably be doing there is opening fire on the Scourge ships. Now something, you can't really see it in this video at the moment, but the Scourge frigate was out of range of the UCM guns. The way range is worked out is you have a signature for each ship, and then you have a scan for each ship. So the UCM ship has a scan of 6 inches, which means it has 6-inch range. The Scourge ship, the frigate had a 3-inch signature as opposed to a 6-inch one for a cruiser. So you then add them together. That means there's a 9-inch range between the two. It needs to be 9-inch for you to be able to see. Things, orders can add spikes, and spikes such as they're like energy spikes or heat blooms, and they make your ship more visible. Spikes add extra range essentially. So if you have a minor spike, it's 6 inches. If you have a major spike, it's 12. So what you can do, if you use an order and get a major spike, then you add the spike, the signature, and the scan range to get the range at which they can fire. So it's quite important to consider that. A lot of the Scourge ships in this particular battle didn't do any really heavy orders, so they were able to like avoid some of the UCM's fire by just being out of scan range. Here we can see the UCM's cruiser is opening fire on the Scourge cruiser, doing a little bit more damage. What will happen is the shots being fired there were the close action weapons. They are essentially like little missiles, little guns that are just dotted all over the ship. They can only be fired at 6-inch range. They get fired, same as a normal weapon profile. You roll your lock value, more than 2 to above your lock value is a critical, but the enemy get point defense against it. So that Scourge cruiser was able to defend against the attack with its point defense. Something to consider is point defense can negate crits. If you attack with close action weapons and you get a couple of crits, if the point defense, every 2 successes of the point defense, it then it can remove that crit. You also get your armor save after you do your point defense. So you can use your point defense to get rid of the crits, and then use your armor save to get rid of the normal attacks. Pretty simple. We just see the Scourge, I believe it is the Wyvern class, move up and fire a couple of shots. That last roll, I believe, was the bombers. And point defense can be used against the bombers. They act like a normal weapon. They're just done at the end of the turn, and there you go. The bomber token has been removed. Now what will happen is that's basically the end of the turn. You would deploy troops at the end of the turn, but that hasn't happened because nobody's close enough. So you sort out your cards, and then you flip the first card, the one you want to activate first. You then compare command values, and we see who goes first. They've done a roll-off because they had equal command value, or build rating. I can't remember the precise name of that. And so the person who wins this gets to choose to go first or second. I didn't mention that earlier. So in this regard, the Scourge player chooses to go first, and he moves his Wyvern, which is a very strong close action ship. I believe it gets 2d6 plus 4 on its close action. So what you'll see is he's going to roll a boatload of dice and do a fair chunk of damage to the UCM ship. Now I'll talk about movement a little bit here. You just saw then the Scourge cruiser just powered forward, I believe, around about 8 to 10 inches. I think they can move 8 inches or 10. But anyway, you have to move at least half your thrust distance. Unless on a standard order. I'll talk about orders in a minute. You can move the full amount, which is for Scourge is 10 and for UCM it's 8, but you can have to move at least half, and you can turn a 45-degree angle. I'll talk about orders now. So we have multiple different orders, and they give you they have differences. Some of them give you spikes, some of them allow you to do extra turns, some of them allow you to use extra weapons, some of them allow you to move slower, things like that. Station keeping means you move up to half your movement, and you get 1 turn and can fire 1 gun, and it's no extra spikes. Weapons free means you cannot turn your normal movement, so up to half or full, half has to be half or full movement, and you can fire all your weapons, but you gain a major spike. As you can see there, I believe the bombers have been put back down, so the UCM cruiser, the special cruiser, has moved on and moved up, opened fire, and put his bombers down. Something to consider, with weapons free, you get a major spike, meaning you're 12 inches more visible. Certain ships, such as the UCM special class, the Scourge Wyvern, I believe it's the New Orleans ship is the one with the special ship. They don't need to ever go weapons free because they have one weapon profile, a close action profile, which you can always use, and in the case of the UCM ship, which is actually the Seattle, the Seattle, that ship can always fire its bombers, so it never has to go weapons free, so generally it doesn't ever get spikes. There is no collision. Every ship is determined to be where the stem is, so it gets in this particular demo game gets into a bit of a parking lot with the ships all crowded together, but it never nobody ever clashes, nobody ever hits each other. Again, some damage is being done from the, I believe it is the Scourge, the UCM frigates are opening fire on the Scourge frigates. We've missed it, but the one of the Scourge cruisers has been destroyed. The burn through laser, which is on the Berlin class, has which is the UCM cruiser that's right in the middle. The burn through lasers in this game were very, very strong. It gets 2 dice. It wounds on a 3. And the way it works is if you roll a 3, you then get to roll another one until you keep rolling and rolling and rolling. So what happened just there was the UCM ship opened fire. I believe he rolled something like a 6 and a 3. So he's done 1 critical effect, which means it ignores armor. But with burn throughs it carries on, and he did 6 or 7 damage to that ship. When a ship has lost half its health, there is a hull rating. When it has lost half its hull rating, it then has to roll on the critical table. The table itself can do things like it can add extra damage, it can make your engines not work. In this game, quite a lot, we had a reduced scan range to 1 inch. And obviously you can see how that's might be quite important if it wasn't such a big scrum in the middle, that because all the ships, you wouldn't be able to see anybody. There are ones where the ship takes extra damage, or can't turn, or can't fire, things like that. When a ship does get destroyed, there's another table for you to roll on, and that table is what happens to the wreck. There is, later on this game, I'm not sure if I managed to get it, the UCM shot a Scourge cruiser and it exploded, dealing a huge amount of damage to the ships all bunched around it, which then exploded in turn and did even more damage. So it is quite easy and quite possible to cause extra damage to both yourself and the enemy with ship explosions. I mean, it kind of makes sense that the flying debris from one of these massive cruisers is going to hit everybody if they're so close to each other. As you can see, it's becoming a bit more of a parking lot, and the Scourge frigate has moved in. It's not very easy to tell, but I believe at the end of this turn, or it might have already happened, troops will be put down. They're just little tokens, and you get to pick which sector you add them to. You have to be in atmosphere to do that, and I've missed talking about the different layers. So you have high orbit, low orbit, and atmosphere. If you're in a different atmosphere to an enemy ship and you want to open fire, or they want to shoot you, it is +1 to your lock value. If a ship is in atmosphere and it's being shot at by a ship in high orbit, that ship has +2. For example, the UCM, if they're trying to shoot at a ship, they rolls 4s for most of their guns. The mass drivers are 4+ lock rating. If they're going to shoot from high orbit to atmosphere, it would be 6s. So you can hide in atmosphere, but only certain ships can go there. Cruisers can't go. All the cruisers that we've currently played with cannot go into atmosphere. Now, unfortunately, because of the way that the video is set up and because of the way all the ships are, you can't really see much of what's going on. It all looks like a big mess. And to be honest, the way this game was played, a lot of ships were very close to each other, literally just hammering each other with their close action weapons and everything else. Weapons free was used for every ship that could use it around about this point. Scan range became a little bit pointless, which is one of the things that maybe is a little bit of an issue with the game. Every other table seemed to be similar. You got the 2 sectors either side, and most games turned out to be that all the ships would move into the middle and then just hammer each other. And I suppose you could see that because you have to get to the objectives. You have to put troops on the ground to win the game. As you can see now, they're about to put some tokens down. You can't really see it on the far side. So putting the tokens down means you're going to, get those victory points and win. But it did seem like most games turn out to be a bit of a scrum in the middle with all the ships attacking each other and not really moving past, start at the end, meet in the middle, and then just die. Maybe that's just to do with the fact it's a demo game or the fact of the mission we're playing, but it just seemed to be happening on every single table. Here they are going through their cards, deciding which ship they want to use. It wasn't discussed at the time that if you lose a ship, your command value, build rating, whatever it's called, goes down or not. We didn't know that. So the reason you have a higher number is because it's harder to command a big unit of, like 4 or 5 ships are slower to react than 1 ship. So the question we were asking is what happens when that group of 4 ships suddenly only becomes one because the rest are all dead. But that's maybe something that needs to be dealt in, discussed later. Another issue that seemed to crop up was the fact that the bases don't really work. They're very hard to actually turn easily. They're very hard to read when you're sat there and you're just looking at the base. It's quite hard to tell what atmosphere, what level, like high orbit, low orbit atmosphere that the ships are at, and if they have any spikes on them. It's quite hard to tell by just where we were sat. I couldn't tell without picking a ship up. Um, and the same can be said for like the whole the damage. We had to use dice. Normally you would use a little peg that would go into a number on the base. That would be very hard to see without picking up the ship. And because there is no point where the ships will collide, they are all right next to each other, and therefore it can all get a bit confusing. It'll be quite difficult to reach into the mass of ships and turn the dial. So yeah, that I believe the camera is going to run out of battery soon, and that's going to be the end of the game. Unfortunately, what happened next was the UCM cruiser opened fire with its burn through laser, killed the Scourge ship, and made a chain reaction which killed, I think, a whole Scourge battle group and a UCM cruiser that was low on health, and 2 UCM frigates. So the burn through laser did really good. It killed 2 Scourge cruisers, but this kind of chain reaction parking lot kind of issue meant that a lot of ships all died together. It was very fun. It was very enjoyable to watch, but maybe it was just a bit too much. Like one explosion killing 3 ships or killing 2 ships that then blow up and kill another ship. Maybe it's just poor positioning, but obviously it's just a demo game. We don't really know how these things are going to go. The game was won by the Scourge. They had 3 troops down in the sectors, and I believe the UCM only had 2. That kind of came from the fact that the UCM frigate, all exploded in that big fireball that I was talking about. So far, this game is really, really enjoyable. I think it's excellent. I enjoyed playing a game. I enjoyed watching a game. I can't wait to get my hands on the rules and actually see all the different variations. But there is something to be said for the bases not working quite right, which is a bit of a shame because I'd rather use them than tokens. And there's something to be said for the fact that the ships seem to all be clumping together on most boards that we were looking at. It possibly didn't happen. Maybe once we have extra ships, more tactics will come into play. From what I've read, the Shaltari are very long ranged. They just like to, they can snipe you. So obviously that would make it very different for them. And it seems to be beneficial to have a ship with maybe not so many guns, because you can then you don't have to go weapons free. Something that in my game happened was I wanted to go weapons free with one of my cruisers, but the 2 frigates with it I wanted to keep still so they could put extra troops down on the planet. But you can't do that. The way orders work is if you have a battle group, you can choose one order, and it can affect all of them, or it could affect 1 ship or 2 ships in it. Any ship that doesn't choose that order has to do a standard order, if that makes sense. So if you have a cruiser and 2 frigates, the cruiser can do weapons free, and the 2 frigates have to do standard orders or weapons free. So you can't station keep and weapons free, which makes sense because that would be quite flexible, maybe a bit overpowered. It did mean that it seemed like having a cruiser with a lot of guns attached to a couple of frigates that were there to put troops down might not be the right combo, but we can't tell until we get all the rules, see all the different types of ships, and start combining and seeing what's happening. So yeah, I think this is a really great game. I can't wait to get the models. The models themselves so that we were using on the day and that we got were great. I can't wait to get the rules and see what happens, see all the new things, all the new ships, all of that. Yeah, so thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments, again, sorry about it's kind of a cobbled together video. If you have any comments, that'd be great. Please just let me know, and hopefully once we get all our models, we'll be able to start doing some battle reports and some extra, maybe some tactics videos. So that'd be good. Well, thank you very much.